Most businesses don't break all at once. They drift. Quietly, incrementally, one small compromise at a time. Most businesses don't fail all at once. They drift. Quietly, incrementally, one small compromise at a time.
Welcome to Built to Carry, the podcast for business owners who have built successful businesses but find themselves carrying more of the weight than they ever expected. I'm Darren Cioffi. I'm a fractional CFO, business coach, entrepreneur, and business owner. For more than 30 years, I worked alongside business owners, helping them understand their numbers, improve profitability, strengthen cash flow, and build businesses that don't depend on them for every decision. Over those 30 years, I've learned something important. Most business problems aren't financial problems. The financial systems are usually just the first place they show up. The real issues are almost always structural. They're hidden in leadership. They're hidden in systems. They're hidden in decision-making. They're hidden in habits that have been repeated for years. Built to Carry is about helping you build a business strong enough to carry growth, carry change, carry challenges, and ultimately carry on without everything resting on your shoulders. Because your business should be built to carry you, not built to crush the owner. Now, let's get to today's episode. Today, I want to pause the series for a special episode. See, we've already released 5 episodes, and we've been talking about growth, branches, structure, and what the business can actually carry. But I want to stop here for a minute because something keeps showing up in conversations I'm having with business owners. And I pay attention. Today's episode is called Clarity Before Control. And I want to talk about clarity because I'm seeing a lot of business owners carrying stress they don't need to carry. Not because business is easy. Business is never easy. Not because the problems aren't real. They're real. Cash is real. Payroll is real. Debt is real. Employees are real. Customers, margins, they're real. But the mental weight gets heavier when the owner doesn't have clarity. And when there's no clarity, every problem feels urgent. Every opportunity feels important. Every employee issue feels personal. Every cash decision feels like survival. And every setback feels like proof that something is wrong. And before long, the owner isn't just running the business. They're carrying the whole thing in their head. That's exhausting. So today we're going to talk about clarity. Not perfect clarity, not some fantasy 5-year plan where every single thing goes exactly the way you wrote it down. That doesn't exist. I'm talking about clean direction, the kind of clarity that helps you know where you're trying to go, what matters most, what you're protecting, what you're not chasing, and what you need to correct back towards when business hits you, because it will. See, Mike Tyson is often quoted as saying, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. See, the original wording was closer to everybody has a plan until they get hit for the first time. Either way, the lesson is the same. And business owners understand that feeling. See, you start the week with a plan. You know what needs to happen. You know who needs to be paid. You know what jobs need to get done. What customers need attention. You know what money's coming in or supposed to come in. You know what the team is supposed to focus on, and then business happens. Customer doesn't pay, employee quits. Payroll is tighter than expected. Vendor changes their pricing. Loan payment comes out earlier than you thought. A piece of equipment breaks. A job runs over budget. Customers call upset. Something happens. The plan gets hit. And here's the thing. The hit is not the problem. The hit is business. That's part of the deal. The real problem is what happens after the plan gets hit. Do you know what to do next? Do you know what you're protecting? Do you know what matters most? What direction to correct back towards? Or do you just react? Because that's where a lot of business owners get themselves in trouble. They don't get hit and adjust. They get hit and panic. They start changing everything. They start chasing whatever looks like relief. They pay the loudest vendor. They delay the quiet one. They take the wrong job. They make the wrong promise. They move money from the wrong account. They cut something they should have protected. Spend money because they're tired of feeling behind. Start making decisions from stress instead of direction. And that's what happens when there's no clarity. Here's the line I want you to remember from this episode. Clarity doesn't make business easy. It makes the weight easier to carry. That's the point. Clarity does not eliminate problems, does not prevent bad weeks, does not stop employees from leaving. It does not guarantee customers will pay on time. And it doesn't make payroll magically appear. It's not going to stop the economy from changing. But clarity gives you direction, and direction changes everything. Because when you know where you're going, the problem becomes, how do we adjust? Not, what are we even doing? That's a completely different mental state. One creates movement, the other creates exhaustion. Most owners think they're tired because they have too much to do. Sometimes that's true. But most of the time, they're tired because they don't know what matters most. See, that's the difference. A long list is manageable. Confusion is exhausting. When everything feels equally important, your mind never shuts off. You wake up thinking about payroll. You drive to work thinking about employees. You sit at dinner thinking about customers. You go to bed thinking about cash flow. Then you wake up the next morning and do it all over again. The work is hard, but the mental fog is what drains you. Because you're not just making decisions. You're carrying every possible decision at the same time. Should I hire? Should I wait? Should I take this job? Should I raise prices? Should I buy the equipment? Should I cut expenses? Should I invest in marketing? Should I pay the vendor? Should I hold cash, expand, pull back? Without clarity, every decision feels like it could make or break the business. That's no way to live. And there's no way to lead. Here's the thing about planning. Most people think a plan starts with action. It doesn't. A plan starts with destination. Where are we going? What are we building? What does this business need to become? What has to be true for this thing to actually work? Because if you don't know the destination, all you're really doing is making a list. And a list is not a plan. Let me say that again. A list is not a plan. A list says, do this, call that person, post this, buy that, hire them, launch this, pay this, collect that. A plan says, here's where we're going. Here's why it matters. Here's what has to happen first. Here's what we are not doing. Here's what we will protect. Here's how we will know if we're off course. See, that's different. And a lot of business owners never get there. They stay in a list mode. They stay in reaction mode. They stay in motion. But motion without direction eventually becomes drift. See, this is especially true for new business owners. And I want to be very clear. I'm not criticizing them. Most new owners are not lazy. They're not dumb. They're not careless. They're inexperienced. See, there's a big difference. A lot of people start businesses because they're good at something. They're a good contractor, technician, a good accountant, designer, chef, salesperson, a good consultant. even an organizer and therapists, good, whatever it is. They know how to do the work. But doing the work and running the business are not the same thing. And nobody tells them that early enough. So they make a plan based on what they know. But here's the problem. They don't know yet what they need to know. They don't understand cash flow, pricing, margins. They don't understand payroll. As well as taxes and systems and hiring. You know, these are all things that, you know, as a business owner or as an employee working for somebody, you most of the time you don't come across. And you don't understand when growth shows up and starts putting weight on a structure that was never designed to carry it. So they make a plan. But the plan is built on missing information. Then the plan doesn't work. They think they failed. They didn't fail. They planned without the right instruments. That's different. And sometimes they don't ask for help because they're embarrassed. Well, most times they don't ask for help because they're embarrassed. Sometimes they think they should already know. Sometimes they're afraid someone is going to judge them. And sometimes they don't even know they need help. See, that last one is dangerous. Because if you don't know what you don't know where the risk is. You don't know which questions to ask. You don't know what information is missing. You don't know that the thing you're ignoring today is going to become the thing that hurts you 6 months from now. See, that's how drift starts. See, there's a leadership lesson I love that gets attributed to Steve Jobs. He said, in effect, we're paying people to tell us what to do. Think about that. That's Steve Jobs, one of the most successful business leaders of our time. And even he understood something a lot of business owners struggle with. The job of the owner is not to know everything. The job of the owner is to build the right room, to get the right people around the table, to bring in people who can see what you can't see, to bring in people who know what you don't know, bring in people who can challenge your assumptions before the market does. See, that's not weakness, that's leadership. The smartest business owners I know are not the ones pretending they know everything. They're the ones smart enough to know where they need help. And I'll tell you something. That one shift can remove a tremendous amount of mental stress. Because once you stop pretending you're supposed to have every answer, you can start asking better questions. And better questions create better direction. Let me say this plainly. Asking for help is not weakness. It's leadership. One of the smartest things a business owner can say is, I don't know what I need to know here. That sentence can save you years of pain. Because the owner who asks for help early gets options. The owner who waits until things are on fire gets fewer options. That's just reality. And I've seen it over and over again. The earlier we get clarity, the easier it is to correct. The longer we wait, the heavier the correction becomes. That's true in business. That's true in flying. That's true in life. I had a conversation recently with a business owner who said something I hear all the time. We're busy. Now, that sounds good. Busy feels good. Busy feels like progress. But then we started looking at the numbers. And suddenly the conversation changed. Because revenue didn't feel as strong as the owner thought. There were questions about what had been invoiced. Questions about what had actually been collected. What was one system versus another? One report said one thing, another tracking system said something else. And the owner was sitting there trying to figure out, are we doing okay or not? See, that's mental stress. Not because the owner wasn't working. They were working. Not because the business had no activity. There was activity. The problem was there wasn't enough clarity. Because when you don't know where the numbers are coming from, you don't know what the story they're telling. And when you don't know what the story they're telling, you can't lead from them. You start leading from feeling. And we've already talked about this. Feelings are not instruments. So we had to slow down and ask, what number are we using? What system do we trust? Are we looking at sales? Are we looking at collected revenue? Invoices, cash? Are we looking at revenue before fees or after fees? Because those are not the same thing. And this is where clarity starts. Not with some grand strategy. Sometimes clarity starts with saying, what number are we actually looking at? See, that sounds simple, but I can tell you after 30 years of doing this, a lot of businesses don't even have that answer. And because they don't have that answer, the owner carries unnecessary stress. Because they're trying to make decisions without knowing what's real. See, this is where flying has helped me understand business better. You don't get into an airplane and say, let's go. Go where? What's the destination? What's the route? What's the weather? How much fuel do we need? What altitude are we flying at? What are the winds doing? What happens if the weather moves in? What's the alternate airport? Now, does that mean the flight goes perfectly? Of course not. The wind changes, air traffic control gives you a different instruction, weather shifts, you may have to adjust altitude, you may have to change route, you may have to land somewhere else. That's flying. The plan is not there because everything is going to go exactly according to plan. The plan is there so when things change, you know what you're correcting back toward. See, that's the key. A plan is not a prediction. A plan is a reference point. And business owners need to understand that. Because too many owners think planning means predicting the future. It doesn't. Planning means choosing direction. Then building enough awareness to correct when reality shows up. See, if I'm flying and the wind pushes me off course, I can correct because I know where I'm supposed to be going. But if I never choose a destination, how would I know if I'm off course? Think about that. How do you know if an opportunity is good for you? Don't know what kind of business you're trying to build? How do you know if a customer is right if you don't know who you're really trying to serve? How do we know if a hire makes sense if you don't know what structure you're building? See, all of these things come into play because you don't know. You don't know if growth is healthy, if you don't know if the business can carry it. You don't. So everything becomes a maybe. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should try that. Maybe this will work. Maybe that will help. Maybe this customer is worth it. Maybe this hire is the answer. And this is the big one. Maybe this loan will fix things. I've never seen a loan fix things. Maybe this new service will get us to where we need to go. Maybe. Maybe it's exhausting. Clarity gives you something stronger than maybe. It gives you direction. Not perfection, direction. I had another conversation recently where the whole issue was timing. Not whether the business had work, not whether money was coming in. The money was coming, but the timing was tight. Payroll is coming. Vendor payments were coming. Fuel is needed. A loan payment had to be dealt with. Customer payment was expected, didn't show up. Another check was supposed to show up. And suddenly the question became, what do we pay first? See, that is where clarity matters. Because without clarity, the owner starts reacting to pressure. Whoever calls the most gets paid. Whoever's loudest gets paid. Whoever creates the most stress gets attention. But see, that is not a plan. That's reaction. So we had to ask, what has to be protected first? Payroll, fuel, critical operating expenses, promises we already made? Then we look at timing. What's coming in? When is it coming? What is committed? What can wait? What can't wait? That's not fancy. That's not complicated. But it creates relief because now the owner isn't sitting there with everything swirling around in their head. Now there's a sequence. This is first, then this, hold this, delay that, call this person, confirm that payment. That's clarity. And clarity lowers stress because the owner can finally see the path through the week. Not the whole year, just a week. Sometimes that's all you need. The next right step. A lot of owners wait for perfect direction. They want certainty before they move. They want every number perfect, every condition perfect, every answer lined up, every risk removed. That's not how business works. And it's definitely not how flying works. You don't wait for a world with no winds before you fly. You plan for the wind. You don't wait for a world with no weather. You check the weather. You don't wait for a flight with no uncertainty. You prepare for it. Business is the same. You don't need perfect direction. You need clean direction. Clean direction says, this is where we're going. This is what matters. This is what we're building. This is what we are not chasing. This is what we will measure. This is what we're going to protect. This is how we know if we're drifting. That's enough to move. And movement without direction is very different from movement without it. I had another meeting recently where the conversation was about an employee bonus plan. Now, on the surface, that sounds simple. See, you want to reward an employee. You want to motivate them. You want them rowing in the same direction. See, that's a good thing. But then the question started. What number are we using? Revenue? Collected revenue? Hours, billed work, gross sales, service sales? Do we include fees? Do we exclude surcharges? Does the bonus start at $1? Does it start after the threshold? Is it a percentage or a flat amount? What happens if the employee hits a big number once? What happens if they hit it consistently? What happens when another employee finds out? And all of a sudden, what looked like a simple bonus plan became a much bigger leadership question. Why? Because compensation without clarity creates confusion. And confusion creates future conflict. So we had to back up and ask, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to reward an effort? Are we trying to reward revenue? Are we trying to improve scheduling? Improve accountability? We're trying to create ownership. Once we knew the destination, a plan got cleaner. Not perfect, cleaner. We could say, here's the number. Here's why this number matters. Here's when the bonus kicks in. Here's what's included. Here's what's not included. Here's when we review it. See, that's clarity. And that matters because owners often create stress for themselves by making commitments before the structure is ready. They have good intentions. They want to take care of people. They want to be fair. They want to motivate the team. But if you make promises without clarity, you create a problem you now have to carry. And that's what Built to Carry is trying to avoid. The goal isn't to carry more promises. The goal is to build structure around the promises before you make it. This is the part I want business owners to really hear. Clarity creates relief, not because the business suddenly becomes easy, but because your mind finally has a place to put things. When you have clarity, a new opportunity comes in and you ask, does this move us toward the destination? When a problem shows up, you can ask, what are you correcting back towards? When someone asks for your time, you can say, is this mine to carry? When money gets tight, which it always does, you can ask, what is the priority right now? When growth shows up, you can always ask, can the structure carry this? Clarity doesn't know every answer to every question, but it gives you a framework. And a framework reduces mental stress because now you're not starting from zero every time something happens. See, I called this episode Clarity Before Control for a reason. A lot of business owners want control. They want control of the team, control of the customers, the money, the scheduling, the outcome. I get it. Control feels safer, but most of the time, the need for control is really a symptom of unclear structure. See, when you don't have clarity, you're trying to control everything because everything feels risky. But when you have clarity, you can start building trust. You can delegate better. You can communicate better. You can say no faster. You can make decisions without turning every one of them into a crisis. I have to hold everything. Clarity says, I know what matters, so I know what to hold and what to release. See, that's a huge difference, and that's how a business starts becoming built to carry. I had a conversation recently with a business owner who was trying to solve problems that were 3 steps away, 5 steps away, 10 steps away. And listen, I understand that instinct. Owners are always thinking ahead. That's part of the job. But sometimes thinking too far ahead creates confusion. In this case, the owner was trying to build plans for employee compensation, future roles, future responsibilities, future growth, and future problems. Some of those questions mattered, but not all of them. So the conversation became, let's solve the thing that is actually in front of us. Let's put the first structure in place. Let's get some history. Let's see how the person performs. Let's see how the numbers behave. Let's see what the business can carry. Then we adjust. This is not avoiding strategy. This is good strategy. Because clarity is not trying to answer every problem. Clarity is knowing which question matters next. That's a big difference. Some owners exhaust themselves trying to solve the next 10 problems before they solve the first one. And that creates stress. Clean direction says this is the next step, not the final step, the next step. So let's come back to the plan getting hit, because it will. Every business owner deals with it. The question is not whether the plan gets tested. It will. The question is what happens when it does. If there's no clarity, the hit creates panic. If there is clarity, the hit creates adjustment. That's the difference. And here's the line. The hit doesn't destroy the business. The lack of direction after the hit does. That's when I see all the time. The customer leaving didn't destroy the business. The employee quitting didn't destroy the business. Neither did the slow month. That didn't destroy the business. The unexpected bill, that's not going to destroy the business. What created the damage was the reaction after it. The emotional decision, the panic discount, the bad hire, the rushed loan, the spending cut that hurt capacity, the yes to the wrong customer, the refusal to ask for help. That's where the damage happens. Not in the hit, in the reaction. Clarity improves the reaction. So what does clarity actually look like? It starts with a few questions. Where are we going? What does healthy business look like for us? Who do we serve best? What kind of work should we stop taking? What numbers must we watch every week? What does cash safety look like? What decision should no longer come through me? What do I need to learn? Where do I need to help? What am I pretending I already know? That last one is important because pretending is expensive. Pretending you understand cash flow when you don't. Pretending you know pricing when you don't. Pretending you know how to hire when you don't. Pretending the numbers are fine even when you haven't looked. Pretending you're not even overwhelmed when someone else can see that you are. Clarity starts with honesty, not shame, honesty. There's a difference. So here's a simple test. Look at your current plan. Sales plan, growth plan, hiring plan, financial plan, marketing plan, compensation plan. Now ask, what destination is this plan designed to reach? If you can't answer that clearly, you don't have the plan yet. You have activity. Then ask, what happens when this plan gets tested? Because it will. If a key person leaves, what do we do? If revenue drops, what do we do? If growth happens faster than expected, what are we going to do? If cash tightens, what do we do? If opportunity looks good but doesn't fit, what are we going to do? Clarity doesn't mean you know every answer. It means you know the direction you're trying to protect. That's enough to keep moving. So here's my challenge for you. Before you build the next plan, define the destination. Ask yourself, where are we actually trying to go? What kind of business are we building? What do I need to learn to lead this business better? Where am I afraid to ask for help? What am I carrying mentally because I don't have enough clarity? And when the next hit comes, what direction am I correcting back towards? Because you don't need perfect direction. You need clean direction. You need a reference point. You need enough clarity to quiet the noise and take the next right step. Not the perfect step, the next right step. That's how businesses move forward. That's how owners reduce the mental weight. That's how structure begins. And that's how you build something strong enough to carry more than just you. I'm Darren Cioffi. Thank you for joining me on this special episode of Built to Carry. And remember, clarity doesn't make business easy. It makes the weight easier to carry. And as always, drift is inevitable. Collapse is optional. I'll see you next time.
The bank says pressure, everybody's smiling, but the structure gets lesser. Payroll Friday, can't sleep Thursday night. Everybody needs answers and they're looking left and right. Every problem routes back to the same damn chair. Everybody says they got it till nobody's there. No alarms, no crash, just a slow pull off course. You don't notice drift till the weight gets worse. Built to carry. It doesn't look like danger, built to carry. Feels normal to the owner. One more fix, one more file, one more late night while till the business owns the builder instead of getting stronger. Instead of getting stronger. Cash moving fast, but the margin's getting thin. Growth covering weakness like paint over rusted tin. Meetings about systems, but nobody follows through. Everybody wants clarity, still depends on you. You build the machine, now the machine won't stop, and every small shortcut becomes another crack. Structure, not hustle. Correction, not panic.